is next up? Viddal Riley has just become British champion, beating Chev Clarke in his toughest test to date in impressive fashion. While he's well known for being the former trainer of YouTuber KSI, having a YouTube channel of his own with over 1 million subscribers, Viddal has a very decorated amateur pedigree and potential to be a superstar. So this is why Viddal will be world champion.
But before we get into that, we're Punch Talk and bringing you daily combat sports videos, so if you enjoy the content, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to help support the channel. So Viddal is now the British champion at Cruiserweight with an impressive win over Chev Clarke. He's undefeated, his record now at 13-0, and he's a very well-rounded, very well-schooled boxer fundamentally. He's very light on his feet, especially for those bigger weight classes at Cruiserweight. Not many people move like him. He's very mobile, he's pretty quick, but he's also pretty strong, can stand his base, and I feel like he has a lot of the tools to inevitably get to the top of the Cruiserweight division, even though there are some killers in his way if he wants to make it there, like the Jai Opatayas. Right now the champions are Jai, Zurdo Ramirez, and Badu Jack, and Viddal is younger than all of them at 27 years old. Jai Opataya is at 29 years old, and he's on a monstrous tear himself, just destroying David Naika in his last fight. But if they can continue to build Viddal correctly, get him the big fights, maybe step up in competition again, maybe fight a former champion like Chris Billum-Smith, who just lost his titles to Zurdo Ramirez, had a win on the same card as Viddal. That could be a great step up for him, and overall I feel like there's a lot of potential here with Viddal Riley that a lot of people aren't really putting on notice.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like he's been kind of overlooked, especially coming up in his career, even by some other promoters like Eddie Hearn, not believing that he really has the talent to make it to the top level, as he said before, specifically with him calling him a YouTube fighter, also because Viddal was fighting his guy in Chev Clarke.
Who else is going to be on a Sky Sports poster like that and not be called a real foul? I rest my case. Anyone else would be called a real. Every other guy on that poster is a real foul. Isaac, Sergey Lipinets, Adam Azim, but Viddal's not the real foul. Doesn't make sense, does it? But it's because it's just not true. I only like to deal with facts.
But either way, there has been some doubts on if Viddal really is this top tier boxer that can make it in his division. But getting a win over good competition like Chev Clarke is what you want to see out of a guy coming up in his career. And he's finally making the steps necessary after having so many struggles earlier in his career. He was signed to Mayweather Promotions first, and he had a few fights early on, but was struggling to get consistency, and then moved on to Boxer. And during that time, he also struggled with a lot of different injuries, which led him to pull out of some different fights. And those would have been huge opportunities on massive cards too, which even further delayed the possibility of him becoming a star in the sport of boxing, because that early start with him getting the backing of a huge YouTuber in KSI and building a community for himself is all the great recipes to becoming a big name in the sport. So with those early struggles and then moving to Boxer, but finally as of 2023, 2024, and hopefully this year as well, we're going to be seeing Viddal be very consistent, having a lot of fights here, no more injuries, and he's really coming up to maybe a few fights to fighting for a title soon. And probably his most likely route to becoming a title challenger would be to be fighting the inactive Badu Jack, who is holding the WBC belt. With him not having fought in a while and being very old, it seems like that's his best route compared to Jai Opataya that's been dominating the division. There would be some different issues with that going down, with them being friends and might not wanting to fight, or maybe with Badu not fighting again, but who knows. But that would easily be his easiest route to become champion.
Yeah, like you said, it is kind of unfortunate how his career was riddled with a lot of injuries. He could have fought on big stages already. Could have fought on the Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones undercard where Jake Paul made a splash there against Nate Robinson. Could have fought on the Floyd Mayweather undercard when he fought Logan Paul. He had to pull out of that fight as well. So earlier on, he was booked on so many big occasions, but just never was able to make the walk. Finally signing to Boxer, he got to be a little bit more active and just start to progress, get his record up, and finally challenge for the English Cruiserweight title, putting on a masterclass against Nathan Corliss, then beating Mikhail Lawal in pretty much a masterclass. He did get a rib injury in that first round and then just cruised to a pretty simple unanimous decision win, and that's kind of what we've seen from Viddal Riley's career. Against the top guys, he hasn't necessarily stopped them and had those highlight reels, but these are hard guys to stop, and you're talking about the Lawals, the Chev Clarkes. These are tough, durable guys who can hold their own, have never been stopped before by anyone else. He took a short notice fight at heavyweight against Dan Garber at the end of last year, but finally was able to secure those big fights. Supposed to fight Isaac Chamberlain going into the start of this year, then Isaac Chamberlain had to pull out, and instead he gets the opportunity to finally fight on one of these big undercards on the Conor Benn versus Chris Eubank Jr. undercard, fighting Chev Clarke and putting on an impressive display of boxing. And honestly, Viddal has a lot to offer. He's a pure boxer, but he also has the backing of that YouTube audience. We've seen with the likes of Ryan Garcia how he's able to use that social media audience and translate that into boxing to become one of the biggest stars today. He's headlining a fight next weekend, and he's the biggest draw on that card. But Viddal's not really an outspoken guy or a trash talker. He does usually keep it real. He calls himself the realist. And maybe that has kind of been in the way of him becoming like a huge superstar in the sport. But regardless, eventually if he keeps building and if he keeps winning, the skills will do the talking regardless. And he has a huge following, a huge backing. Like you said at the start, he has a YouTube channel with over 1 million subscribers. He's uploaded hundreds of videos, and even with being a popular YouTuber, he still has the skills to potentially become a future world champion.
Yeah, and I think it's still really too early to say how great Viddal Riley can be. Chev Clarke is a great start, but the competition only gets harder from there. But Viddal definitely has a lot of different looks to offer opponents. We see he's quite a versatile fighter, being able to adapt to multiple different styles mid-fight. We saw that in the Chev Clarke fight. He was mixing it up. He was switching from a high guard style to them being more in a loose movement style, using his footwork and dancing around, and it looked like he was flowing at times as well. It doesn't seem like necessarily he's this crazy power puncher, but that's fine. You don't need to be. Many great fighters have not been an insane power puncher, being able to stop the highest of competition. The key will be for him to be outboxing these guys, and so far that's what he's doing, outboxing Chev Clarke, winning majority of the rounds. And with him being pretty young, there's still a lot of opportunity for him to grow and for him to make the jump and be in that world champion contention level. But only time will tell for Viddal Riley. However, so far for 2025, this is a good start, and he definitely has a ton of potential from here.
Yeah, even though Viddal hasn't been getting the most brutal knockouts as of late, he is a cruiserweight, he is a big guy, he doesn't really plant his feet as much as some guys, which is why he may not get as many knockouts in his career, but he still has those highlight reel knockouts, even though they're not against the greatest competition. We've seen him plant some nice counters, drop opponents, hurt them, and like you said, there are definitely some guys that could just get away with outboxing their opponents. Look at the best boxer in the world right now in Alexander Usyk. He's not necessarily considered the hardest hitting, the heaviest handed heavyweight, but he's still running through the division and putting on master classes on guys, hurting some guys at times. And overall, Viddal has a lot of time to grow. He's one of the youngest cruiserweights at the top right now, only 27 years old, and he's probably going to be around for a while, and I just can't see a way that he doesn't get his hands on a world title one day.
I belong here. That's it. That's how I feel. Like I belong here. Seeing the red carpet, brand arrivals, all these sort of things. Like this is why I do what I do. You know what I mean? If I wanted to stay on the 6 rounders and be low key, then what's the point? You know what I mean? Being here, this is what you work towards. This is why you put the sacrifices. This is why it happens. So I feel good, man.
But let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Will Viddal be a world champion? And if you guys enjoyed and want to see more boxing, check out what's next for Eubank and Ben on screen now.